Rob, just going back to the Congresswoman's statement there, she managed to get all of the Democrat buzzwords in there. I heard racist, misogynistic, white supremacists. She got it all done. I mean, those are all the words you got to include in a floor speech if you're going to come out against something that 80% of the American public supports.
Well, a couple things. One, the SAVE Act is just recycled Jim Crow era legislation. These are the exact policies that were put in place along with poll taxes, literacy tests, to prevent individuals from being able to participate in the franchise. Not to mention, it's completely unconstitutional because the only way that this would not be a poll tax is if the federal government provided these documents to every single American. And if you're a conservative, if you believe in small government, you should not believe that you have to have a national ID in America. This is constitutionally incompatible with our system of freedom and our system of democracy. And then if you want to take it down to the furthest level, socioeconomically, if you're homeless and don't have an ID, that does not mean you should not be allowed to vote in this country. If you're poor and live in a rural community, that does not mean your right to vote should be taken away. So we're sacrificing many of our constitutional freedoms and the things that our founders gave us simply in order to execute this extreme MAGA agenda because they don't want to be held responsible by the American people who are being failed by this MAGA agenda, who are not part of the millionaire and billionaire class.
Amy, how would you like to respond to that?
Well, you know what? When you can't run in the court of ideas, what do they do? They resort back to the same playbook, exactly like you said, name calling, telling us that we're racist, and telling us that things aren't unconstitutional. But here's the reality. This should not be a partisan issue where the Republicans are the only ones that are actually fighting for election integrity and the Democrats are not. I can't believe that we have found ourselves in this position in America where the Republicans are fighting for American citizens to be able to have a say in the direction of this country. And hopefully this SAVE Act does get passed. They're going to have a few hurdles in the Senate trying to overcome it as is. We don't necessarily have the 60 votes to overcome a filibuster if that's where this heads. But like Speaker Johnson said, hopefully some of these Democrats come to their senses. They protect the American people. They protect our Democrat process, and they get this SAVE Act passed.
So, Rob, explain to me how this is anything similar to Jim Crow era legislation. It is 2026. We've had a black president in this country. Everyone, regardless of their race or sex or creed or whatever, will be subjected to the same legislation. Everyone would be required to do this. So why is it disenfranchising one group of Americans over the next?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because during the Jim Crow era, what you will pass is what's called a facially neutral act. Things like a literacy tax, things such as a poll tax. This, in the same way, requiring individuals to have a government-issued ID is putting an economic barrier between individuals who do not drive, who do not otherwise have ID, or who just don't want the federal government to have that much information about them, who don't believe that the federal government needs to know where they are at and what they're doing at all periods of time, and don't believe you should have to have that imprimatur of the empire upon you simply to be able to exercise your rights to vote. So the same way that those things were put in place during the Jim Crow era, it's the exact same issue now. By you putting these additional barriers in place, you're disenfranchising people who are poor, people who are rural, people who are unhoused.
Same, because it's not 1963.
It disproportionately impacts.
It's 2026, Rob. It's not. It's not the same thing as it was back then. And we're talking about preventing people who have no right. We're talking about people who have no right to vote here, making sure they're not voting. That's what this is all about, making sure that the 20 million or so illegal
Americans of their freedom.
Rob, you live in Georgia. Robbing Americans of their freedom. Stop filibustering me, Rob. You're talking about, you live in the state of Georgia, which put into place some of the best election integrity laws that exist around the country. And what we saw was voter participation. Yeah, but what you saw is voter participation from minorities go up. And let me just move on here, because there is a Alabama Democrat labeling the Save America Act, just much like you are, as voter suppression because it will require people to show proof of citizenship before they register to vote. Watch this.
Republicans are pushing this piece of legislation, which will block millions of voters from casting their ballots. Let us be clear, this is not a voter ID bill. It is a voter suppression bill, plain and simple. This bill is so extreme that even driver's license would be insufficient to register to vote. Instead, Americans will be required to present their birth certificate or their passport. The reality is that half of Americans do not have a passport.
Yeah, but the thing here, again, Amy, I'll go back to what I said before. We've had an unprecedented number of people flood into this country illegally. We're about to take a very important vote this midterm election. What is wrong with having more election integrity?
Absolutely nothing is wrong with it. We live in a country where you have to have a photo ID to buy cold medicine. You have to have photo ID to be able to drive. I mean, we are talking about reducing fraud on some of the most important elections in our country that lead us in the direction of where we want to go as American citizens. And we should be the only ones who have that input. And nobody can look at all the fraud that's been uncovered through this country over the last several months and say that voter ID would not reduce fraud when it comes to the election. So the SAVE Act is very, very important if we actually want to, like I said, restore faith and trust to get into our democratic process.
Yeah, and a lot of states already require this. It makes sense. But this is now an issue for Democrats. They are so much against it. Here's another clip we want to play. Specifically, this is Michigan Congresswoman Hillary Schalton, who's talking about females particularly being disenfranchised here.
Nearly 70 million married women in this country have changed their last name, but their birth certificates don't reflect that. In Michigan's 3rd district alone, 160,000 women could find themselves unable to register simply because when they got married, they didn't change both their ID and their birth certificate. 160,000 women in my district alone.
They're going to blow these numbers out of proportion, but Amy, I wanted you to respond to that specifically. Like, basically what she's saying is women are not capable of doing this.
Thank you. That's exactly what I heard. I heard that the party that loves to tout that they are for women wants to tell me that I'm too dumb to be able to figure out the process of how to go down to the courthouse and change my name on all of my legal documents. I went through the process myself when I got married. It wasn't that hard, and women are capable of figuring this out. And most of the women that are in that poll said that they want this. They want to preserve election integrity. This is very important to all of them. And so the ones that really do want to get it done, we'll go get it done because it's not that difficult.
Yeah, the overwhelming majority, Rob, of black voters, black Democrats, are in favor of this. So why is the Democratic Party going against popular opinion?
Because it's unconstitutional. If you want to change it, change the Constitution. George Washington did not have to present a passport to be able to vote. Abraham Lincoln didn't need some convoluted system in place to be able to vote. We are simply trying to amend the Constitution through a legislative act, which will not survive a judicial challenge to the Supreme Court. And all these points, the Supreme Court has already said you cannot put substantial barriers in the place of
It's
voting.
not a substantial barrier when every single
barrier.
person in the country is required, and most do, reach this threshold. It's not too much to ask to verify your citizenship and show your
every
ID.
American to have the government in their business. If I'm a conservative, I don't want the government overreaching to every.
All right, Robert, I see
life.
President Trump walking out. I'm just going to end on this. Democrats want the government involved in your health care, which is the most up in your business you could possibly be. So don't give me that. All right, we got to go to the White House here. President